Welcome back to the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Garima Shah, a dynamic, results-oriented fintech executive with over 18 years of extensive experience driving revenue growth through strategic business development, corporate acquisitions, and a motivational, hands-on leadership approach. As the president and co-founder of Biller Genie, she's instrumental in expanding the company's subscriber base by forging strategic partnerships and fostering a collaborative company culture. Garima, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I would love to have you start off by sharing more with our listeners about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Garima Shah. I've been in fintech since before it was called fintech, before it was called just payments and payment processing. But I've been in this industry for about 22 years now. So it's been a long time. And really started my career in the payments acquiring space. And we opened our own startup about 6 years ago. And I don't know if I can call it a startup anymore because we've gotten a little bit larger than that. But we opened our startup, Biller Genie, 6 years ago in the accounts receivable automation space.
Oh, amazing. And I would love to hear about what inspired or prompted starting Biller Genie.
You know, I think that it's important to note that I never went into this saying, let me go open a company, let me go start something. It was really necessity drives innovation. And you see that in the payments world, there were so many bifurcated processes. You had people who were using this company for merchant services and this company for invoicing and this company for accounting. And so we just sought to solve that problem really for ourselves. And in doing so, we found out that it wasn't just something we were facing, but the entire world, all small businesses have the same issue. And getting paid shouldn't be that hard.
hmm Yeah, and I think that's a good point. It's like when you're doing work, you want to get paid for the work that you're doing, but being able to get that payment is something that should just be easy for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, having started at Biller Genie 6 years ago, I would love to hear how it's progressed since then. Maybe how it's changed, exciting things that have come out, or even if you've had to pivot in any sense.
I think pivot is our middle name. I think that's the way that startups work. When we first launched, we actually launched as a payments company. And within 2 months of launch, we decided that that wasn't going to work because we had some very large Fortune 500 banks want to work with us, but they wouldn't because we were their direct competitors. So we ended up becoming a SaaS solution literally 2 months after we launched. Um, at one point, we thought we'd have a direct sales model. We didn't do that. We do all of our distribution through partnerships. And there's been so many, twists, turns, pivots through the way. But some of the changes, just 6 years ago, it was two, three, four of us in a room trying to figure out whether or not we had a product, doing no revenue. And now we are, 6 years later, we have two offices, one in Orlando, one in Belfast. We have over 90 employees. We've got a process and procedure for everything. We just recently closed our Series B funding round. We are break even, and our product is utilized by almost every large bank in the United States.
Oh, wow. I love that. And so, for anyone listening who is like, I think I might need to look into Biller Genie and use it for myself, give us an overview of how it works.
Absolutely. So, when we think about getting paid, there's three things that every business needs to do really well in order to get paid. The first is you got to send out your invoice. If you don't send someone a bill, they can't pay you, right? Pretty simple. The second is you've got to ensure that you're billing them for the right amount and the right stuff. And the third, and probably most important, the reason why we all use Amazon is not because it's cheaper, it's not because the products are better, but we use Amazon because it's so much more convenient, it's easy. So the third and most important thing is you've got to make it easy for your customers to pay you. Now, look, we do a whole lot of other things. We have a lot of bells and whistles that make Biller Genie work, and we have a lot of really cool features. But at the end of the day, we do those three things really well all the time, every time. We ensure invoices go out on time automatically, and we say automatically because we are a genie. We ensure that there's data integrity across multiple platforms. And most importantly, we make it really easy for customers to pay. So if you think about your landscaper, or your plumber, or anybody else that comes to your house, whether it's construction services or painters or accountants or lawyers or any other business type, magazines that are having to take that payment. Imagine as a consumer, you just receiving that on your phone, be able to click a button and make that payment immediately versus going to have to find a check. Like, who has a check anymore? And putting out an envelope and send it to someone. So we really make sure that we modernize that process in terms of bill payment.
Yeah, I love that. And especially because you mentioned those three buckets of being able to send invoices, making it easy to get paid, and being able to streamline that process because payments shouldn't be hard.
Not at all.
Yeah. And so being in fintech, I love that you said you've been in fintech since before it was called fintech. How have you seen fintech change throughout all that time?
Yeah, like I said, when I was in fintech, the first time I heard the word fintech was probably around 2009. And before that, it was just we were payment acquiring or you were issuing or you were kind of in these siloed places. It's so interesting though, because fintech is how money moves in the whole world. Whether you think about Uber or even Amazon, like I mentioned before, it's not about the marketplace. It's not about the drivers. It's about the movement of money.
Hmm.
Before Uber existed, you wouldn't get into someone random's car at an airport and without saying a word, just walk into their car and just hope that they drop you off in the right place. Like that would have never happened. The reason why that happens is because Uber is able to take the payment, they're able to streamline it for the consumer and then ensure that the drivers get paid in that split format. That's really important. And fintech truly is the basis of money movement across the entire world. And so it's really exciting to be in this industry because we get to be at the forefront of however you're handling any technology where finances are involved. And that's just what runs our economy. So it's really cool to see that. And it's changed so much. I mean, back in the day, again, you didn't have these automated ways. You couldn't pay from your phone. Now, I don't think I ever take my wallet anywhere. I expect everybody to have Apple Pay or for me to be able to pay on an app. And that's just the way that it works. And that's fintech. And that's the evolution of it. And now with AI and agentic AI and the ability to say, I'm looking for this skirt. Whenever you see it on sale, just buy it for me. It's really amazing to see what's happened in fintech and how what's truly changed is the speed of money movement and the
Hmm.
speed of realizing that payment. So if you think back 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago when people were using cash, that speed of money movement was different. Oh, let me go get cash for this exact amount. I have to be face to face. I have to be in front of you to pay you this cash so that you can then take it and go deposit or put it under your mattress. Now we do business globally every single day with multinational corporations, and that speed of money movement is instantaneous.
Hmm.
We go on trips, we pay our friends through Venmo, Splitwise. I mean, these are amazing things that fintech's doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you mentioned about the speed. And it's like I read an article about this recently where it's like companies who don't make it quick for people to pay them are likely to lose that customer, lose that user to their competitor who does make it faster. So you bring up a good point here because I feel like we live in a world of convenience and like instant gratification. So if you're not moving
Absolutely.
quickly, it can be tough to retain people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that, you also brought up a good point about the rise of agentic AI, which is really interesting to see how that has been incorporated in fintech throughout the past year or so. And so I'd love to hear if Bill or Jeannie has embraced that and if it's something that you're working on and incorporating.
I mean, look, I think any company, especially in the SaaS space, that is not using AI in everything that they're doing is probably falling behind. At the end of the day, AI is the newest technology. It is how we move forward, and it's how we make ourselves more efficient. So we use AI for everything, and we're always looking at more ways to do that. Whether that is streamlining our support functions, whether that's helping write help center articles, whether that's scrolling through our calls and seeing if there's feature requests that we could use to enhance because everybody's asking for the same thing. For competitive intelligence, I was actually just using it, looking at some information. We use it for various things like FP&A. So I think the utilization of AI, it's just a must at this point, and it's
Mhm.
truly omnipresent. It's not something that we can ignore, especially as a software company. And I know that there's a lot of companies touting AI, and I don't think that that's. I think a lot of that is because of the AI bubble that occurred in the financial markets. Um, but it's not about that anymore, right? It's not about the company that uses AI. It's every company's using AI. It's just who's actually utilizing it to make what they already do more efficient versus who is touting themselves as, oh, I'm an AI company. Everybody's an AI company. A shoe store is an AI company. They should be, right? Like, and so I think that needs to become more prevalent.
Yeah, I love that. It's a good reminder because it's like I feel like AI used to be the differentiator for companies when they said that they were an AI company. It years ago was something that was impressive, but to your point, now AI is just the norm or should be the norm in many ways. And so, with that being said, what would you say differentiates Bill or Genie from your competitors, or what makes you the better choice for your users?
Yeah, so I don't think it's about our AI. I think it's about what our product does, right? Like we have been so solely focused on the SMB segment and getting them paid faster, streamlining every part of that accounts receivable process, everything from sending out that invoice to how it's reconciled, what the happens in the batches. We come from payments, so we understand what they're getting in, ensuring that we have multiple integrations to various software platforms so that it's really easy, regardless of what the user is using, making it easy for the form of payment and making sure that we can take all types of payment from a consumer, whether that be check, cash, credit, whatever, however the consumer wants to pay, meeting that consumer there and giving them all those flexibilities and options really sets us apart because we're also very agnostic on both
Hmm.
ends. So we'll be able to work with any payment provider, any software provider, and any payment form. And that puts us in a very unique point in the market because when you think about people who may compete with us, whether that's QuickBooks invoicing, well, that's not, we work with QuickBooks every day. We're actually top in their marketplace as an AR receivable solution. But if you're working with QuickBooks Payments, that's not agnostic. That is a very closed loop system. And so we've created this democratized open loop system that allows us to be that wheel with all these various spokes that come into us and ensure that we can push that information throughout multiple platforms.
Yeah, and I think that is really key there, where it's like you said, having that open loop and being able to have those different integrations and whatnot, rather than making it difficult for people to tie all of these platforms together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, what was the moment that you knew Bill Genie could be something big? I know you just closed your Series B, but would love to hear if there was an instance or something that kind of
Ab-
flagged to
There
you.
was, there was. My partner and I, years and years ago, and we hit this milestone a long time ago, but there was a moment where we said, if we can't get to at least $200,000 a month in revenue, this is a hobby and not a company. And I think it probably happened for us about 4 years ago. And that moment we're like, we built a company. Like this is something,
Mhm.
this is a real company now. Because we knew what it was going to take to build. We knew the staffing that we needed. We knew the technology that we needed. And before that point, it's very easy to say, we're not sure what we're doing. This isn't really making any money. And you can be one of those startup companies who is just, let me just spend, spend, spend. Hopefully something will happen. We're a little bit different. Have always been profit forward. We've always thought about the bottom line first. We've always wanted to maintain break even or maintain profitability. I think it just puts us in a better place from a leverage position. And because of that, our ethos have been a little bit different in terms of how we've scaled and grown. And it takes longer, right? It takes longer when you bootstrap it. It takes longer when you don't have VCs backing you. But you maintain control and you maintain decision making and you do things the way that you want. And you might build a little bit slower, but you're usually building a little bit better. And you're usually choosing things a little bit more strategically. And
Mhm.
so that for us was that moment. I very much remember that moment when we were like, oh my God, we just made $200,000 this month in revenue. We have a real company now.
Mhm.
And that moment forward, I think everything changed. We opened an office. We, decided where we were going to spend our money. We started looking at various resources across the organization. We started looking at scalability. All of that changed very dramatically.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear why you chose that number, if it was something that was based in data or if it was just almost like a feel-good number. Where you're like, if we reach this, like it will feel good.
At the time it was based in data. So at the
Yeah.
time we had put together a budget that said like, unless we hit this number, we won't be break even.
Hmm.
And again, it was many, many years ago. I wish that was a break even now. I wish, but that's also not a revenue now, so it's fine. But it was very much baked into this is what we believe, at $200,000. Okay, that's a $2.4 million company. That is number one, it's a feel good number. So yes, it does have some vibes. But from a budget perspective, it was what at that point it would take for us to break even on the stuff that we knew that we needed to do the things we wanted to do grow.
Yeah, that makes sense. And on that note, since you just closed your Series B, what did that change for the company?
The first was validation more than
Hmm.
anything, right? Knowing that you have a real product, a real company, people who want to invest in you. We'd never done an institutional round before. So bringing a growth equity partner in was a big deal for us. We actually didn't have a round open. We weren't looking to raise money. We were break even. And we
Hmm.
thought, oh, we don't really need to raise any money. Our attorney said, hey, why don't you take some calls and just see? Because there's a lot more that you can do if you had a little bit more on the balance sheet. And we did just that. And we took some calls and we did this deal with Radiant Capital, and they are such a fantastic partner because it's not really about the check with them. It's really about the organizational support that they've been able to provide us. So they've got RevOps leaders, they've got people operations leaders, they've got post sales leaders who are all helping us because we don't have the bench strength or the bandwidth to do all of these things. And so many of them are stepping in various executive level positions and decision making for us and helping us do that a lot better. So it's been a great partnership so far. And that's really what's changed for the company is it's changed our trajectory. And we have, a few main goals coming into this year. One of those is just we need to build kind of that structure around us and build that scalable org chart and make sure that we have all of the right people so that we can build that team to really put gas on the fire.
Yeah, very exciting to hear about that. And since you've raised your round, like what have you found that investors are really looking for in B2B fintech right now?
Interestingly enough, I do think investors care about break even and profitability. Like I think like in 2020, it was all about the sizzle and what could be. And I think we saw that a little bit with that AI bubble as well, where valuations were just crazy and people were super excited about that without any real foundational truth behind what was happening. I do think investors are changing. I think the market is changing. I think profit is sexy, right? I always say it's like a little black dress. It's always in style. So I think investors are looking for that. I think investors are looking for year-over-year growth. They're looking for what those CAGRs are. They're looking for what attrition statistics are and like how do the customers really like what you're selling them and how long they stay. So GRR is a major factor that they're definitely identifying and looking for in their investment conversations.
Hmm. And on that note, what do you see banks with viewing automation differently these days than they did 5 years ago? I know AI, of course, has been a big topic, but in automation overall, what are they doing differently?
For banks,
Yes.
I think it depends on the bank.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn here because we have a lot of bank clients. I think some have embraced automation, and I think there's also all these neobanks and digital banks that have embraced automation, embraced AI, and they're moving forward with that and kind of meeting again the consumer where they are and ensuring that they can do international payments and they're ensuring that it's very easy to move money through various bank accounts and various areas. And I think that you'd still have your legacy banks where they aren't using AI at all because they haven't built the policies and compliance around it. And they are large banks with a lot of real data issues, and they want to ensure that their data isn't being shared or compromised. And so
Mhm.
I respect that as well.
Absolutely. And being a leader of your startup throughout the past 6 years, I'd love to hear how you've embraced that, or if there's a tactic that might have surprised people.
About being a leader
Yes.
specifically, I'm a I love my people. Like our staff is the best staff ever. They're incredible. They're a lot of fun, and I get to do a lot of really fun things. So one is I've started this thing called Fuck Up of the Month, where if you make a mistake, you get to get up in front of the whole company and tell us the mistake you made and why and how. And it's really fun, actually, and that leads to Fuck Up of the Year, actually. But what we found is that we have one of our core values is own it. So it
Mhm.
makes people feel like we're a fast moving startup. So it allows them to do the things and make the mistakes as long as it's like you fail fast and you fail hard. That's okay. Just don't do it again. But then it teaches us as a company, like, hey, I did this. This is where I messed up this month. And this is how I think that we should make this better. Also, as a company, how do we ensure that these things don't happen? Do we need a process and procedure? Did something else break that allowed this to happen? So that's really fun. We do a lot of really great like team building events. Our team has pied me in the face before. So we had a contest that said like if they had a certain level of sales or if they had a number of tickets closed, they could pie me, and they absolutely did. We run 5Ks together. We're always out doing things. And like for our annual business review, one of our team members actually wrote a song about us, which was hilarious. And so he wrote a full song and he actually played it on his guitar and sang it to the entire company. And then after that, we had other team members do a flash mob to it and create a t-shirt with the song lyrics on it and a picture. And so it's a really fun culture. I think that's my leadership style has always been work hard, play hard, and just to have a lot of fun. You spend more time at work than you do anywhere else. It should be fun. You should love the people you work with. You should enjoy what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and you should feel like you're in your zone of genius and that you're growing on a day-to-day basis. And that is my job as a leader to ensure that that happens for you. And if that's not happening for you, that's not on you, it's on me. And so it's
Yeah.
an awesome responsibility to do that every day. And I'm so thankful that our team trusts us to be that for them. But we always want to make sure that people are just happy and in their zone of genius. And we're very clear about what our values are and how you work well at Bill or Genie. And it may not be for everybody, but for those it is for, we want to retain them as long as possible.
Yeah, and I love that mindset because as you mentioned, having that team camaraderie is really important when there's so much going on and you're moving quickly and things can be stressful. It's really nice to have that team that you can fall back on and have fun with and remind you why you're doing that work in the first place.
Absolutely.
And so, for anyone who's listening to this episode who's a fintech founder themselves, but they're newer in their startup journey, what advice have you learned along the way throughout your own time that you think is important for them to know?
Analysis paralysis kills. As a founder, you never know if your decision is right. And the reason why you're a founder is because you're probably doing something that hasn't been done before. So
Mhm.
there's no roadmap. There's no list of instructions. There's no, hey, this is what you need to do. And you have to trust your gut, which is what made you a founder in the first place. And when you do that, it's hard. And I like your sign there that says get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, but it's always uncomfortable. It's always making those snap decisions, knowing that many times you're going to be wrong. And one of the biggest mistakes I do think founders make is that they spend too long ideating or thinking about a decision instead of just making the decision and doing it. Your
Yeah.
worst case scenario is that you're wrong. Okay, well, we can go back and fix that. But never starting is way worse. Or taking too long to start, taking too long to get to market is way worse.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote that I once read, which was something along the lines of like, the longer you wait, the faster your competitor will get something out there. And I think it's a good reminder that, to your point, analysis paralysis can hinder you from doing things or tackling opportunities that are happening right now in the moment.
Yeah, and people always say like don't let perfection get in the way of good, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's that idea of like even with little things, like I was talking to a friend of mine who builds websites and she's been working with various founders and just talking about how sometimes people want to make sure every color and every font is so perfect. And while that is important, getting the website out and then iterating after is even more important. And I would say the same for any product. Like get it out, get real market feedback, hear what your customers are saying, because you're just going to keep developing in a bubble and in a silo. And if you don't get that market out, if you don't get your product out there, you will never hear the real feedback to make the changes that are required.
Right. And then I also wonder too, sometimes that if you spend so much time iterating the product, trying to make it perfect, that you could potentially like get further and further from its original mission or like end up
Absolutely.
almost like backtracking, so to say, because you're just working on it too much.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, the kid with the crayon, right? We've all been there. You draw a pretty picture and it's really, really nice. But if that crayon stays in your hand way too long, all of a sudden you just keep going and keep going. It's like, wow, that's absolutely not what it was supposed to look like. And it's such a mess now. I know I was one of those kids. So
So true. That's a good analogy to give. And then for advice that you give to founders, especially fintech founders who are looking to fundraise, what did you learn through that journey?
fundraise when you don't need to.
Mm.
When you have your back up against the wall and you have to raise money, never put yourself in a position where you have to raise money to eat. You should be able to like don't overspend, don't over leverage. This is not a credit card. No one's going to pay it for you. Debt is real. Credit debt is real. Interest rates are real. So don't put yourself in a position where you have your back's against the wall and you have to raise.
Mhm.
When you are raising from a place of I know this is working, I know this is great, I'm profitable, I'm break even, I'm this, investors will come after you and not the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's like you've almost become, I don't want to say like more enticing to investors, but I think it definitely sets a good tone for that.
Yeah, we always talk about the hot girl at the bar syndrome. It's exactly what it is.
That's true. And then I know we chatted about AI, but of course it's such a prevalent topic right now that I think it's important to address again, which is how should founders think about it differently? If there's anything that they should keep in mind as they're building their product or what advice you give there.
I would say one of the things that we're looking for in people that we're hiring right now is not just do they use ChatGPT. Everybody uses
Mhm.
ChatGPT. Everybody's using some kind of LLM to do their basics, like send an email or write a prompt, right? Like I think that's just become again table stakes. but it's how you're using LLMs to make jobs and workflows more efficient. How are you building on it? How are you using it to and where is it helping you find capacity so that human time can be spent on things that are maybe more high value?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to phrase that. And then a fun question that I always love to ask our guests is to give a shout out to someone in tech who's doing something cool right now. So it could be a founder, could be a VC, consultant, anyone is fair game, but would love to hear who you're admiring lately.
Yeah, I mean, so I've always said that one of the people I admire a lot is Reshma Saujani. She has Girls Who Code,
Hmm.
and she is, also launched recently something called Moms First, which is how to get economic equity for women in kind of in lots of tech spaces and everywhere else. And she's been a pretty, loud champion of these causes, and she's always really pushed for women in STEM, women in the workplace, and she's been able to build a pretty large platform, and it's just super impressive.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love Girls Who Code and especially seeing Moms First. There's been so much incredible advocacy happening, which is really important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Garima, this has been such a good episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to talk about everything that you're doing with Biller Genie. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Absolutely. So our website is billergenie.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Garima Shah. And if you just look me up on LinkedIn with Biller Genie, you'll absolutely find me there. And I'd love to speak to any of you. And Ashley, I really appreciate your time and having me on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
You too.